would you like to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. What an incredible panel here. I'm really honored to be here and be invited to this event. So when I was 3 years old, essentially start of my life, I was impacted by a serious geopolitical situation. My family woke up one morning in Uganda, in East Africa, and we were told we had to leave the country within 90 days. Life and death situation, nothing you could control. So that actually taught me several years later about, okay, innovation. You can't be picky about where you're going to go, but this is a problem that must be solved. And so no is not an option. You got to find a way forward, right? And I was honored to be speaking here today as part of an UNGA event because it was because of the UN and public-private partnerships involved that actually is why I'm alive today and here in this country. And so my background is in pharmacy. I'm PharmD as well as a master's in clinical pharmacy. I spent my career in corporate and regulatory affairs and in global regulatory affairs. So just the topic we're talking about, translating innovation across borders, is a big factor of that. And I spent about 24 years in corporate at large companies, and also partnering with startups as part of that role. And so really knowing firsthand what the importance is of startups and actually the ecosystem that's involved in getting products to market. And then I then spent time at a startup itself and leading, having a leadership position at that startup. And then last year, I founded my own company, Innopathwayz, IPZ for short. And I started a podcast this year called Ipso Facto, Innovation, No Way But Forward. And what I've learned over the years and why I have started my own area of giving back, which is consulting, advisory, advocacy, is because with my experience, it is important to contribute back and enabling good health and so individuals can live well. But there are several gaps that are involved with that need attention. And so one of those areas is also advocacy. And I was honored to be joining the Women's Health Advocates as a steering team member this year, and also advocating on the Hill in terms of Alzheimer's and other areas of health. Now, when it comes to getting products across borders from an industry perspective, you have to take, again, like I said, the ecosystem in mind. So it's not just about you're sitting in a company, you've got data, and how do I bring this product to market, make money? You really need to think about what is the purpose of your innovation, right? What is the problem that you're trying to solve, and is it really needed in the country that you're bringing it forward? So you have to consider the standard of care, and the standard of care is not always the same. So in one particular case, we had this situation where supply chain suddenly tells me, oh, we're closing this site in this particular country, and I'm genericizing this on purpose. And no discussion of it. First time I'm hearing about it, even though I'm on a leadership team heading up regulatory affairs. I'm sorry, you can't do that, I say. So nonetheless, there are business reasons that were made and were already made. So I had to collaborate and find a solution. So we did find a solution. We kept the manufacturing site in country, but at a different manufacturing site. So why was this important? Is because when you look at regulatory affairs pathways, many countries will accept some harmonization procedures or regional procedures. And your country of origin, the basis of your clinical studies where they're conducted, the comparators that you're using, which also involves the standard of care, all of that comes into play. And often many countries that are receiving the product from the country of origin, the receiving countries want to have some trustworthiness and assurance that in the country from which this product is coming from, that the product is also marketed in that country, right? So you really have to take some very strategic decisions on what your country of manufacture is, and also your entire supply chain. It's drug substance coming from here, and et cetera, et cetera. Also keeping this in mind, I have worked on diagnostics and digital as well, and also other areas of emerging innovation. So this is often missed. So this is something that's extremely important, that when you are considering a global pathway, you have to take into account local country needs. You have to also take into account, when you're deciding what studies that you're doing, that you have what you've heard many people allude to and talk about specifically, is that patient experience. You have to have that patient experience first and foremost up front, so that you know that the innovations you're bringing forward can actually be implemented in the country in which you're bringing it forward. Otherwise, it might not, actually, honestly, might not be usable or might not fit the ecosystem. So that also means you have to have partnerships with global government affairs policy, regulatory affairs, supply chain, science, all across the board. So it is the science, it is the patient first, but how you bring it all together and make sure what you're making can actually be used is extremely important. So at the end of the day, we did maintain the registrations, because otherwise we were going to lose everything by taking the manufacturing site outside of the country, and that actually saved a lot of money as well, because going forward we were able to use those registrations as a basis for follow-on innovations.
Thank you. So